Oh, hey there, everybody. How is it going? You are watching Kazi from cleverprogrammer.com, and this is Codecademy Part 5. So, let's get started. Just kidding, everybody. This is actually Part 6. I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. Alright, so check it out. We are at 30%. We're almost getting there, okay? So, first of all, I want you to take some time out and pat yourself on the back for getting this far, because you are quite far in the project, all right? But that's the reason I'm sitting here and doing this with you, so you feel like we're in it together, right? So let's keep plowing through this, and hopefully we will get it done very soon. We're at 30% already, okay? So don't give up now, because this is the part where it all starts getting better and you get to use what you've learned. Alright, so we are going to find Python and we're going to hit continue. Okay, so just for people who are maybe coming in right now, we are at the part, we finished Python syntax, tip calculator, conditionals and control flow, pig Latin, functions, and we're starting from taking a vacation. Hard day at work, rough day at school. Take a load off with a programming vacation. That's the one we're on. Alright, so let's click on it and let's get started. This one still has to do with functions, so we're going to continue talking about this one. Okay. So this function is called bigger. It takes in first value, second value, and it figures out which one is bigger. So that's really simple. I think we can go through it and write it together. Write a function called answer that takes no arguments and returns a value 42. Okay, cool. So how this function right here works, I'm going to write it out. Bigger, first, comma, and again, variable names here don't matter. You can say X and Y, but in programming generally you want to use better variable names and avoid one-letter variable names, because you're going to look at it later, you're going to be like, what the heck was going on here? Okay, so print max of first comma second. All right, what this does, function max, figure out what the max is. So here, if you put in, let's say 5 and then 10, the function max is going to go and check, hey, is 5 greater than 10? It's going to say no, so then it's going to pick 10 as your max, and then we just return true. So that's really what this thing is doing here. We define a function called bigger, done. We defined a function called bigger. It takes in 2 arguments, and then we print out the larger one, and then finally the function itself returns true in step 3. Okay, now we try creating a function ourselves. So we're gonna write a function, or I'm just gonna leave this here for you guys in comments. Okay, cool. Define answer, and it takes in no arguments. So remember, the stuff that goes in parentheses, those are called arguments or parameters. Okay, if I had it like this takes in 2 arguments. So this one takes no arguments and returns 42. Okay, that's all this function does. So if I took this function, it's a pretty simple function, and I went into idle and I pasted it here, and then I called this function, you see all it does is it just keeps going 42. So I can say something like the answer to life is, and we're gonna use some string concatenation here, is 42. The answer to life is 42. The str thing I did is so it converts this integer data type to a string data type, and that way it allows me to actually mix and match them together. Otherwise it'll give me an error. So for example, if I don't do the str function on answer, I'll get an error that'll say can't convert int object to string object, or string implicitly. Cool. Save and submit. Boom. We've finished this section, planes, hotels, and automobiles. When taking a vacation, it's very important to know exactly how much you are going to spend. Okay, so they have a function called wages, which takes in an input called hours, and then it does 8.35 times hours. So let's say our hourly rate is equal to 8.35. So we can just, just for the sake of clarity here, right? Hourly rate times hours will give you how much is your wage. Okay, so if you write a function wage, which is supposed to calculate how much money you make in a day or however long of a period, it's dependent on information. It's dependent on one important information, right? It's dependent on hours. And I would like to argue that this function should also be dependent on your hourly rate, right? So it should really be like, so you give it your hourly rate and your hours, and then it spits out something. So for example, let me show you guys what I mean by this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to go here, and you guys should follow along and try to use this wage calculator and do something fun, right? So this is what I always tell my students, or really whoever wants to learn programming, is don't just look at this stuff, do something with this information. So maybe build something that helps you. So if you have a job, do something that'll calculate, you just put in hours and automatically calculates how much money you make. For instance, I'm gonna create this function wages, which takes an hourly rate and then hours, and then it returns your wages or wage. So I'm gonna call this function with let's say hourly rate is $20 an hour, and you worked 15 hours, and it returns 300. Okay, just to keep it simple, if I make $10 an hour and I work for 10 hours, boom. Okay, and I think we can also do this, pass in keyword arguments. Okay, so cool. All right, this is great. Let's move. Oh, sorry. So they want us to create a different function. So I'm going to leave this up here. Define a function called hotel. Okay, hotel cost with one argument, nights. So already I'm thinking the function is called hotel cost and it's dependent on the nights. So I'm thinking if I give this hotel cost the number of nights I lived here, then it will give me back the hotel cost. Okay, so that's generally how functions work. You name a function based on what it's supposed to tell you, and then you put in as input the information it requires to calculate everything. Okay, the hotel costs $140 per night, so the function should total return 140 times nights. Okay, and to make it more readable, I can say per night is equal to 140, and then I want to do per night rate times nights. Okay, so when somebody's reading this code, they're not going to be like, what is 140? Where did it come from? They now know very clearly that it's a night, one night rate. Okay, cool. Start next lesson. All right, getting there. You're going to need to take a plane ride to get to your location. Okay. Now, before we do that, they're giving us an example of a function that does if, else if, and then else at some point. But else if, yeah. So the function is called fruit color. It takes in an argument of fruit. And if the fruit was apple, it will return red. If the fruit was banana, it returns yellow. Else if the fruit was pear, it returns green. So we're going to take this function. We're going to go to our idle. We're going to paste it there. And I'm going to say fruit color, and I will say, so the function is called fruit color, but for an argument, it takes in a fruit. Okay, so we're going to give it apple, and you're going to see it return red. Now I'm going to give it banana, it's going to return yellow, and if I give it pear, it returns green. Okay, that's how that works. Okay, below your existing code, define a function called plain right cost that takes in a string city as input, the function should return a different price depending on the locations, similar to the code example above. Below are the valid destinations and their corresponding round-trip prices. Okay, we have Tampa, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, and all of that. So we're going to write some simple if-then statements. There are better ways to do it, for example, using a dictionary, but in our case, we're just going to use if-then statements. So if city equal, Charlotte, we are going to say return 183. Else if city is equal to Tampa, return 220. It doesn't matter if you put double quotes or single quotes, just as long as you just remain consistent with it, okay? Else if Pittsburgh, I just like to put single quotes because then I don't have to hit shift every time I do it. Oh, I did it the other way. City equal, like that. Return 222, else if city equal Los Angeles, return, 475. Okay, I think this should be good. Okay, that was fairly simple. You're going to need a rental car in order for you to get there. Here they're showing you how to use comparison operators. If score is greater than or equal to 10, then increment the score by 50, or increment the tickets by 50. And if the score is greater than or equal to 7, increment the tickets by 20 and then return tickets. So just to give you guys what that means, if I have something called tickets, right? And there are 50 tickets. And let's say I want to increment the variable tickets by 10. So after this line of code, tickets should actually be 60 and not 50, okay? So a lot of people will try this, and that's what I initially would try. But if you go back to tickets, you'll see that tickets is still 50, so you haven't done your job correctly. How we actually increment the value of tickets, so the next time we print out tickets it says 60, is like this. Tickets is equal to what tickets previously was plus 10, okay? Now if you do tickets, you see it says 60. So this is a pretty common operation. Okay, now if I do tickets again, it's 70. So tickets equals tickets plus 10. All right. Now, the shortcut, since this is such a common operation, we have a shortcut for it in our programming languages, Python, Java, C++, whatever. So the shortcut here is actually this. Plus equals. Now if I go back to tickets, you'll see it says 80. If I do it again and I go back to tickets, you'll see, right? You'll see it says 100 now. So it's just the shortcut is plus equal because it's such a common operation. For you guys, if you're new, write it explicitly, right? Tickets is equal to tickets plus 10. Okay? And yeah, make sure you write it explicitly, all right? And then once you really understand it and you can really use it every single time correctly, then move on to the shortcut. All right, now let's go on to what they're saying. Below your existing code, define a function called define rental car cost with argument days. So I'm thinking already that it will tell me the rental car cost based on the number of days that I give it, okay? Calculate the cost of renting car. Every day you rent the car costs $40. Okay, so every day, each day, so day rate is equal to 40, is what I would say. If you rent the car for 7 or more days, you get $50 off. If days is 7 or more, okay, if days is greater than or equal to 7, then we are going to decrement, or no, we're not. So I'm going to say total cost is equal to nothing in the start, and then total cost minus equals 50, which is the same thing as saying cost minus 50. Okay. Total cost, we're going to do day rate times days. All right, that should be our total cost. And then we're going to subtract $50 from the total cost if the rented days was greater than or equal to 7. Okay. And else if you rent the car for 3 or more days, you get $20 off. You cannot get both of the above discounts, meaning you cannot get both of the above discounts. So if you actually did an if statement, it'll go if blah blah blah, it'll give you a $50 discount, and then it'll go on to this if statement, and then it'll say, oh great, since, okay, let's say you rented the car for 10 days, it'll give you the $50 discount, and then it'll go to this statement, it'll say, is days greater than or equal to 3? It'll say yes, and it'll give you a $20 discount as well. Okay, so effectively what you want to be able to do here is, so if this part is true, the if condition stops. Else if is a great use case for that. So if this is not true, then it's going to go and check if this condition is true. Okay, only if this condition is not true. So that's the subtle difference between else if or elif and if. And at the end, we simply return cost. So we return total cost, right? That's the variable we were using. And this should be good. Boom. Okay, done. Good. Pull it together. So now you've got your 3 main costs figured out. Let's put them in order and use them. Find the total cost of your trip. Okay, so here they're just giving you an example. They create a function called double, which just multiplies something by 2. Then they create a function called triple, which takes in p as input, multiplies p by 3. So it just multiplies a number by 3. And then now they're showing you how you can use both of the functions you define in one main function. So here in the function called add, they're using the function double that's defined up here, and they're using the function called triple that's defined up there. Okay. Below your existing code, define a function called trip cost. So we're going to use this function called trip cost. It's really going to put everything else into perspective. Trip cost that takes 2 arguments, city and days. Like the example above, have your function return the sum of calling the rental car cost days, hotel cost, and okay, so what I'm going to do here is something along the lines of this. Return rental car cost and pass in the days we gave it, plus hotel cost and the days that we were there, plus plane ride cost, and that function takes in the city, and luckily we have the city right here. It is completely valid to call the hotel cost nights function with the variable days, just like the example above. Okay, and this should really do the trick. Okay, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna play around with this a little bit. Okay, I don't want you to do just everything the Codecademy tells you to do, because you're not gonna truly understand it. So it's good to take some time out and really play with it. The more time you spend playing around with this and not actually just doing the Codecademy, the better you're gonna get with programming. It's gonna become more natural to you, and you're gonna really understand these concepts, okay? Because understanding these concepts is not, oh, like, check mark, I finished this section, check mark, I know everything about functions, I did this, I know everything about the math operations. It's really when you take out the extra time and just do something for fun for yourself. It could be whatever, really. So I'm going to, why is it saying invalid syntax? If I paste it in my terminal, does it say invalid syntax? Yes, it does. Why is it saying invalid syntax? Okay, let's go to REPL.it and try it there, because it's really a lot more helpful to be able to actually run this and practice it. So REPL.it does not complain, right? So we have all these functions. Now let's try using them, okay? For example, let's try using the hotel cost function. Let's give it, let's say we went to France and we stayed there for 5 nights. And we're gonna say print hotel cost. You can see $700, right? 5 times 140 is 700. Okay, now let's go to plain right cost and give it city. So let's go to print plain right cost, and we give it a city, and let's say we give it Pittsburgh. Okay, and now if I run it, you can see that it says 222 right there. Okay. And how it figured it out is that when if city is Charlotte, it said nope. City is Tampa, nope. City is Pittsburgh. It evaluated to true, and then it returned 222. Let's use our third function, rental car cost, which takes in the days. Let's give it 20 days and run this. So really it's 40 times 20, that gave us 800. And then it says 20 days is greater than 7. It subtracted 50, and that's how we got 750 right there. Okay. And the last function, and let's put this there, so then when we use it, we can see that actually there's it's separated from everything else. So this is going to be our trip cost. So trip cost. And for city, we're going to give it Los Angeles. And for the number of days, let's say we stayed there for 7 days. So we spent 1 week. Okay. Now, try to figure out before running this exactly what the cost should be, because that will prove to you that you understand this algorithm correctly. And I'm just gonna, well, I guess we can walk through it together as well. So 7 days. So it's gonna come here, it's gonna put in, it's gonna come to this function, right? Trip cost. And to calculate the rental car cost, it's gonna put in 7 for where you see days, right? Days right here is gonna put in that days into this function rental car cost. It's gonna go to the function rental car cost, put in 7 right here, right? Then it's going to put in 7 right here. It's 40 times 7. What does that give us? That gives us 280. It's going to go, is 7 greater than or equal to 7? It's going to evaluate to true. We're going to get our $50 discount. It's going to be 280 minus 50. We're at 230 so far. It's going to go to hotel. So this is going to be 230. It's going to go to hotel cost function now. Hotel cost is gonna pass in days for this argument nights here. Okay, and since let's say we got 7, it's gonna put in 7 right here, which is gonna go up here and put 7 right there, and it's gonna put 7 right there. 140 times 7 gives you 980. Okay, this whole thing is going to evaluate to 980. And then we have the plane ride cost city. It's dependent on the city. So for city, we have Los Angeles. Okay. It's gonna be like this pretty much. It's gonna go to the function plane ride cost. It's gonna put in Los Angeles. It's gonna find it. Nope, this is gonna trigger no, because Los Angeles is not equal to Charlotte. Los Angeles is not equal to Tampa. Does not equal to Pittsburgh. Is this true? Yes, it is. So it returns 475. This whole thing turns to 475. So effectively should be 230 plus 980 plus 475. Your total evaluates to 1685. Let's see if we are correct here. But that's the general idea. Okay, maybe we could be off, but that's the general idea. So I'm gonna write down my assumption as 1685. It's a good idea to walk through the algorithm by yourself. And let's run it. Trip cost, missing arguments. Oh, okay. So it should really be 7 like this. I wrote it incorrectly. Okay, 1685. Did we get 1685? Boom! So you can see that we nailed that one, right? We got it perfectly. But it's important to understand how all of this works together. We wrote 3 separate functions, and then at the end we wrote one main function that uses the 3 helper functions that we wrote. And so basically, you never have to worry about these 3 functions. You only call this one, so your life is easier. And the other functions figure out their things. But one important thing to note is each function does one thing. All right? We're not putting everything together in one place. It's called separation of concerns. We're separating out all of our problem solving to different functions, and then we put them together at the end, and that ultimately returns something hopefully accurate. All right, so that was a lot. Hopefully some of that made sense. And as you can see, we did it correctly. So we're gonna hit start next lesson. Hey, you never know. You can't expect to only spend money on the plane, ride, hotel, rental car when going on a vacation. There also needs to be room for additional costs like fancy food or souvenirs. So modify your trip cost function definition, add a third argument called spending money. Modify what the trip cost function does, add the variable spending money to the sum that it returns. Okay, plus we could be spending a lot of money, so that we also have to take that into account. So now the trip cost is really dependent on the city, the number of days, and spending money. Okay, I mean, and that's how you would literally define it in real life. Like, hey, I'm going on a trip. I might ask you, what do you think the cost is going to be dependent on? And you're probably going to say, well, it depends what city I go to, how many days I stay there, and how much money I spend. That's really what you're telling the computer as well, okay? So it's pretty natural way to describe it, I would think. Save and submit, start next lesson. Plan your trip. Nice work. Now that you have it all together, let's take a trip. What if we want to go to Los Angeles for 5 days and brought an extra $600 of spending money? So that's awesome because we literally just did this, right? We opened up our idle, not that guy, idle, and we opened up our REPL.it, and we literally did what they are just about to have you do, except they put 5 days instead of Los Angeles, and they added another argument called spending money. All right, so now they want us to effectively use our functions, right? Call them. So I'm gonna say trip cost. Make sure to do print here. It's Python 2, so I don't need to put parentheses after the print statement. I'm gonna say Los Angeles. I'm gonna say 5 and spending money $600, and then we save and submit, and we get 1955. Cool. So that was excellent. We went together and we finished this thing right through. Now we are on the next section. Okay, let's go back to the course page. We just finished taking a vacation. We are on Unit 5, Lists and Dictionaries. Great job. Seriously, guys, great job for making it this far, because I know it gets tough as you go on, and it's conceptually harder. There's also more work involved, but trust me, because this is when it starts to get fun and you can start to do powerful things. I mean, look down. You can already do rock, paper, scissors. Student becomes teacher, so being able to manage classes, write programs that can intelligently figure out who got A, B, C, D, so you don't have to do that, and much more, like make your own games like Battleship, okay? So we are getting into the stuff that will help you do really powerful things. So don't get discouraged now. Let's keep plowing through it. I will see you guys in the next video.